Welcome to the third session of the Kentucky Democratic Party's Vote Builder Certification course. Today we are going to be talking about data standards, what those are, best practices, why they exist, and how those will help our campaigns and county parties going forward. So first, just want to talk about why data standards. So the high level reason is successfully in adopting and utilizing these. It's going to make troubleshooting and support a lot easier at scale when you have as many county parties and campaigns as we will using Vote Builder. Being able to have these data standards is going to make identifying and fixing issues a lot quicker. Additionally, moving through election cycles, these standards help better catalog the results for the long run, and it makes sure that folks, when they want to use these results in the future, they'll know what they actually mean. Having a standard 1 through 5 scale for support ID will help make sure folks that are pulling that master survey question for a state house race from 2020, for instance, know what those IDs mean and be able to utilize them in their campaign. So just some basic data standards. First thing we're going to talk about are naming schemes. So for survey questions and activist codes, our naming scheme is basically the office name, underscore the district number, underscore the candidate's last name. This might also be an abbreviation of their name. If they have a long last name, it might just be, for instance, we're using Sherlyn Stevenson for this. So if her last name would take up too much of the name, we would just put CS instead of Stevenson. And then underscore election date. So for Sherlyn's, it was in 2020, it was SR underscore 88 underscore Stevenson. Again, if it would have been a longer last name, we would put CS for Sherlyn Stevenson underscore 1120 for the election date. If it's a county race, for instance, we do have a little bit of something different to make it a lot easier to put that in there. If we put in the county name instead of the county FIPS code, for instance, if you have a long county name like Jefferson County, Livingston County, that's going to take up a lot of the characters in a survey question or activist code. So we're using the county FIPS code, the office abbreviation, the candidate's last name, and the election date. That way, it's a lot easier to know what all of that is. So for the Jefferson County clerk and for a candidate named Skywalker, it would be 111111, which is the county FIPS code, CC, county clerk, underscore Skywalker, underscore 1122 for the November 22 general election. So those are what those naming schemes are. For survey questions, the most typical ones that we're going to have are candidate IDs and the volunteer ask. The candidate IDs are going to be your 1 through 5 scale of strong support, strong Democrat, undecided, lean opponent, lean Republican, or strong Republican. Volunteer ask is going to be 1 through 4, a yes, maybe, later, or no option. For activist codes, these are basically true or false. Does this person want this? Are they a part of this group? If it's marked yes, or if it's marked as, if they're marked as having that activist code, true. If not, false. These are traditionally used for yard sign requests or to track yard signs and bumper stickers or other chum things like that. Some of them that are available for candidate or for campaigns in county parties as well are going to be things like our public educators list. The other data standard we're going to talk about are contact results. That way we know if you're talking to this person on the phone, not home means they didn't pick up the phone. If you're doing it for door knocking, not home means they didn't answer. However, for phone calls, you would have a wrong number if that number you called was not that person. For door knocking, you would have moved, for instance. So naming schemes, the reason that they are really good is they're going to help us decipher what a long list of codes and questions might be. So just looking at the good naming, I've cut off what the description is. We can sort of tell what all of these are just by their names. So 20 KDP-P, that's the 2020 primary vote method. How is that person going to vote in the 2020 primary? By mail, early, in person. HD KDP paid calls, vote by mail, VBMC. So these were paid phone calls that KDP put into House districts in 2020 to do a vote by mail chase. 20 CC KDP HD 1120. These were texts that we did with the McGrath campaign for House candidates. And then sort of what we see down here, KDP paid calls 1120. These were just paid calls that we put in. Coming down here to bad naming, looking at some of the things that we had in 2018, which we'll get to in a moment of regarding survey questions. So likely to vote tier. That one makes enough sense, but it doesn't tell you what candidates for what level or anything like that. It's just likely to vote. Primary 18 ID ask. This is a candidate question. Which candidate is it for? Same with support. Making sure we have these things built into a naming scheme lets us know who the candidate was. Was it for a primary? Was it for a general? And not getting those things mixed up. So for survey questions, like I said, the main standard for candidate IDs is a 1 through 5 scale. Strong, lean support, undecided, lean opponent, strong opponent. And a growing trend that I've been using are a 6 and a 7. So a 6 is going to be a support other, if that's applicable, and a 7 not voting. That way you can keep track of that information. And all of this allows these questions to be backed up to national or statewide master survey questions, which do factor into DNC models. So, for instance, the survey questions we saw on the previous screen, the Kentucky, the paid calls we did, the text we did with McGrath, well, those were separate questions. They all went back to a state house master survey question. That way, those are backed up for folks to pull on in the future. The other one, like I said, is the volunteer ask. It's going to be yes, maybe, later, or no. The later can be edited to be a later and when. This is what happened for the 2020 National Coordinated. They had a later July, August, September, October GOTV. Sometimes issue IDs can be standardized, but it's really going to be only good if the campaigns find a way to implement that data. It's the reason those aren't questions. Otherwise, it's really just good to make that an open-ended question and have a conversation with the voter. Sure, you can ask a lot of issue ID questions. You can have a long list, but if you're not going to do anything with it, it's not really valuable. So I just wanted to talk here about survey questions and creating those. So I do want to say that we have disabled the ability for campaigns, county parties, basically any user in the state of Kentucky to create their own survey questions or activist codes. And the reason, an additional reason beyond just standardization, is that a recent audit showed that a lot of these in previous election years went unmapped. Just doing a comparison of the last two even year elections. In 2018, only 33% of the questions that were created got mapped back to master survey questions. This was the last full cycle where campaigns could create their own. By comparison, when that duty got shifted from campaigns to KDP during setup, nearly 91% of the questions that were created that were volunteer or candidate specific got mapped back to a master survey question. Very drastic increase over the course of 2 years. And another reason that this ability has been switched from county parties, campaigns to KDP. And I think the other additional thing that's going to be really, really good for folks to know is with so many of these being mapped, or with so many of these having been mapped in 2020, this allowed us at the KDP to be the first and only state party last year to create and automate voter contact reports for candidates up and down the ticket. If we didn't have data standardization, questions being mapped back to master survey questions, this would be a nearly impossible task. For instance, if someone put one strong support for their strong support ID, but another person just skipped the one and put support candidate, it would be really difficult to match those back. because of the different naming. So having those as standardized and having them mapped back to master survey questions allowed those reports to be created and automated much easier. So just going on to activist codes, how I want folks to think about this is it's going to be, this is best when it's tracking more simplistic pieces of data, like true-false statements. So the reason these are standard uses for things like yard sign requests, item requests, constituency groups, volunteer signups, it's a good way to track, did this happen or did this not happen? So for yard sign request, do they want a yard sign or not? Same with item requests for like bumper stickers, t-shirts, other chum. Do they want this or have they received this? Yes, no. Constituency groups, so like our educators, our interns, young Democrats even, is this a person a member of that group or not? And for volunteer signups, think of things like Mobilize. Did this person come in through this? Sign in, did they come in through an event sign in? Did they attend an event? Did they sign up online? Those types of activist codes can be created to keep track of where people came from as leads. So, moving on to contact attempts and results. Two factors to keep in mind. A contact type is how that contact was made. Did you knock a door? Did you make a call? Did you send a text? The result is the result of that contact attempt. So did you talk to the voter? Were they not home? Wrong number? Did you send a text? Et cetera, et cetera. So sort of bringing things together, contact, and the reason these are important, contact types are going to ensure all campaigns organize voter contact data in a similar manner. Canvas results are definitely an area where folks need to be trained and understood the meaning of each result. Having inconsistent results, an entry could lead to good phone numbers being marked bad, or people that we want to keep in our universe being knocked out of the universe. So for contact types, there are 8 that we have. They're standard, detailed, relational, distributed, bulk, paid, social media, web. Probably the ones most folks here are going to use are going to be standard. You might use some detailed, you might use some relational. That is probably about it. And I would definitely say get used to those. If you need if you want to use other ones, we can have that conversation a little bit more. But standard is going to be a lot of your true direct voter contact. Detailed is going to be if you have an auto dialer, if you're putting out robocalls, if you're sending postcards. Relational is if you're using a relational organizing tool. Distributed is if you have a direct voter contact that's going on, but it's a distributed program. For instance, and I'll just say paid ID. So if you're having and this one's probably going to be either paid walk or paid call. So are you having paid canvassers or paid callers making call, doing contact for you? Canvas results, big long list. I'll let folks go through it, but this is the true meaning of what everything means. So with things like busy, that's going to be when you're doing a call, you get busy signal. Call back is you called someone, they were busy, they were not able to talk at the time, and said call back. Not home, self-explanatory. Wrong number is, like we said, the person's not at the number, and this is the one. And then the next one, disconnected and deceased are the ones that folks get confused a lot. DSC or WX means the phone number is disconnected or not in service. This doesn't mean they are dead. If you see DC, XX or dead, that means that person has died, or you were told they have died. So those are the ones to definitely keep in mind, and are the ones that are the ones that need the most coaching. So just thinking about everything in a nutshell, sort of the main takeaway from data standards is with standardized activist codes and survey questions, there's clear consistency between cycles, and that makes results easier to catalog and access and ensure clear decipherability. in following data science from their contact attempts and results, there's consistency to decipher those results to ensure programs talk to who they need to. So with that, we're going to move on. We're going to wrap up and let folks move on to the quiz. Like all the other quizzes, folks need to pass with a 75 or higher grade. Once they've done that, due to materials, folks will be able to move on to session 4. As long as you get a 75 or higher, it will open up the next session for you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up and hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Bye.